Hi everybody, it's Jeff. Today we're going to start working on the light seal support craft. It's a 135th NAM series kit from Dragon. I've had this kit for quite some time. It's a little over 30 years old. I did a little unboxing a few days ago, you guys may have seen. Everything was still packaged and it's never been touched, so we'll get started on this today. One thing I did notice on the color callouts, and I mentioned it before, they've got Guns, Hobby Color, Guns, Sangyo, and Mr. Color. Things have certainly improved since this kit was first manufactured. If you see here the colors, you know, red, yellow, silver, gold, white, flat black, steel. Not a lot of detail, just exactly what the colors are. I did notice on the main part of the hull, it says green. That's the color call out for the hull. But it also says there's a federal standard number, 34102, which I was able to cross-reference to a Vallejo color, which is USAF green, 71.289. So I've ordered that. It might take a week or so for it to get here, but we'll start with the model and we can, you know, get everything fitted and get some stuff primed, and then when the paint gets here we'll get things primed. One thing I wanted to show you before we get started is just the size of the kit. I didn't really talk about that too much before. The hull is approximately 3 inches wide, or 23 centimeters, and overall it's about 7.5 inches, or no, let's see here, 7.5 inches, or approximately 19 centimeters. So that gives you a rough idea of just how big the hull is. This will actually be, you know, length and width close to the size of a tank when it's all finished up. So let's get started, and we'll get some parts cut out and get some stuff together. And step one, we've got some container. It looks like a locker of some kind. The basic tub, some seat rests, and a few other odds and ends. I'm not really sure just what all these parts are. I'm not a big ship person or a boat person yet. I'm hoping to learn. So I'll get these parts cut out and cleaned up, and then we'll come back and we'll get that part put together and move on to another part. Okay, be back soon. Thanks. I've got all the parts cleaned up for part one. Here's I try and keep everything in containers. I've got the stuff for part two pretty much all cut out. I try real hard not to just leave pieces laying loose on the bench. That's a real good way to lose them. Anyway, I've got these parts all cleaned up. Everything looked really good. No real flash, no sink marks, no problems at all. With this, I have several issues. Well, it's all the same issue, but several times. And I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up or not. But let's see here. We've got ejector pin marks here, 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 and here. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm going to have to deal with those. That's the only way I can do it, is sand these out, and a couple of them might need to be filled. But that'll be the next thing I'll do. These would stand out like a sore thumb under paint. So that's one of the things that I really tried hard to do, is make sure no visible ejector pin marks or sink marks or anything on any of the kits I build. So I'll be getting this done, and when I have everything finished up and ready to glue these parts together, I'll be back. Thanks, guys. Okay, guys, that didn't take too long. I've got all the ejector pin marks out. I generally, anytime there's a big flat surface like this, I generally go over it with some real fine sanding paper anyway, just to give the paint a little bit of a tooth. So I went over everything. The marks are all gone. I don't think they'll show up at all under paint. This one here, there's just a tiny bit left, but there's going to be what I believe is a radar unit that sits right over that, so that will not be visible. The next step in part 1, we've got some seats, and I'm assuming these are probably lockers also. There's 3 of them that'll go around. I've already checked the fit, and they fit fine, but if you notice, there's a gap. So they set up off the floor. If I glue those in, it's going to be real hard to paint underneath that. And they don't fit wonderful. They are really loose, I should say. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and glue the tops to them, and I've already checked to make sure they dry fit fine. But I'm not going to glue them in and paint it, because I don't want, to have bare spots that you could see underneath. It'd be almost impossible to really paint it well. And I might paint these a slightly different color, or I might put some wood texture on it or something to make it stand out a little bit. I'm not really sure just exactly what that was supposed to be. But, that's the nice thing about building a model. It's my model, and I'll do it, the way I want to do it. Okay, the step 1 also wants you to put these 3 little brackets in here that hold a mast, that I guess you'd call it a mast, that hold a radar unit. Well, these things are super, they're the plastic, there's lots and lots of play. So I don't want to glue those in and then try and fit the radar mast. What I'll do is, in part 2, they say to fit the mast. Well, I'm going to fit the mast now and get that as nice and straight as I possibly can. Then I'll fit the other parts to it. It just seems to make more sense. Also, the seat that I guess you'd call him the pilot or the navigator, sits on, has these little brackets that go here, but there's no forward or backward locating, just side to side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them to the bottom of the seat where there is locating pins or locating slots. Then I'll make sure they fit here, but I will leave them, I won't glue the seat in. I'll glue the seat to the brackets, but I won't glue the seat into the bottom of the floor yet, because there again you can't get paint underneath it. So that's one thing that we'll do part, but we'll save part of it till after it's painted. Okay, and everything else fits real good. I've got all the marks out and everything. So I'll get this stuff glued in, and then we'll move on to the next step and go on to step 2. Okay. Okay. I've got this glued in. I used the end of my ruler. This common trick, but I went around with it to square end to make sure that this was nice and straight. So I got that in, let it sit for a while, then I added the 3 little braces, which everything looks nice and square. I'm real happy with that. So that part's done. I found out these two little slots where your seat goes. If you follow the instructions, these little braces, you would glue in even with the seat. You know, the seat braces would go in flush with the front. Well, that doesn't work. If you put your seat in there, it would be right up against it, and it still doesn't go back all the way. So I'm not going to glue the seat in, of course, till I paint it, but I'll get the, there's a cockpit dash that goes across here, and underneath it right here will be a radar unit. So that'll be put in at a later date. I've got these done. These little lockers or seats, whatever they are. And I'll keep these out until I get them painted. Whoops. Fumble fingers. So those are all in. So that is step 1 completed. I'll move on to step 2 real quick here. Which basically, as far as I know, this is radar. Here's the seat, which they say to glue in at this point, which I'm not going to do. Here's the radar dome. Got 2 pieces that I'll glue together. And another little flange that'll go on top of here. And then this will go on top of this. Well, anyway, you guys see how it works. This will go on here. That little flange I'll put in too. And there's a couple of other little pieces here that'll go in on both sides. I'm assuming they probably locate the dash or the cockpit. And here's the radar unit that is in 2 pieces. Everything's all cleaned up. And that'll go over this little lug right here. I'm not going to put this in either yet because I want to paint it, and I want to paint the screen and the buttons and everything on there. So I'll leave that till a later time also. So I can glue in these 2 parts. I'm not going to glue this in because it's going to be real hard to paint the underside of it. So I'll glue this together, and I'll have this little flange in this for later. So I'll glue these in, which are basically, I think they locate the dash. I'll look and see. But we'll save these until later, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, be right back. I've got these 2 little blocks glued in just to get that done. One thing I wanted to mention, I've been doing this for quite a while, but I noticed Steve on the model shed doing it the other day too. Anytime I have a part where I'm gluing, where I could possibly get the glue under my fingers, I always just mount it on a piece of white tack. It keeps my fingers away from the glue joint. Put the part where you need it. Make sure it's all good. And run the glue around the edge. Hold on. I can't see a darn thing with my glasses on. So anyway, we'll just quickly go around here. And then if there's any little bit of glue that doesn't go where I want it, it won't go under my fingers. And I'll finish this off at some point, but that's plenty of glue. And I'll just leave that to set, and no chance of ending up with big fingerprints on it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to step 3. Got everything all set right here. Here's the, I guess that's called a transom. I'm not really up on my boats. This is not not propeller driven. It is like a jet, you know, water pump through it, kind of like a Sea-Doo. Oh, it's got two places here where the water is ejected. I have no idea where the intake is. I'm assuming it's probably not really modeled on this. But there are a number of pieces that need to go on here. But that'll go on the back of the hull. Then we've got this. This had a lot of flash on it, so it took a bit to get that cleaned up. But I've got the hull here. I've got it all cleaned up. I went ahead and sanded it with 1000 grit paper just to give it, you know, to cut that shine and to give it a little bit of a tooth. And I'll probably sand it with something finer before I actually paint it. This fits great. Run a little quick setting around there and that should be good. And we've got this. I guess it's like a bumper. But I noticed that this is tapered. So it's tapered in such a way that it only fits one way. And I'll just have to watch and make sure it goes in the correct way. And that should all fit up just fine. And then I have a small little ring here that'll go on the front also. And that'll complete step 3. So I'll get that done. And I'll be back in a few minutes. And we'll go on and see what's on step 4. All right, guys. Here's the hull. Step 3 all finished. I've got the transom on. I am not real sure about this joint. It glued well, but there's a bit of a lip there. There is another part that goes over here. So I'll check that out before I sand it off to make sure I'm not sanding away any locating pins or anything. But I'll probably sand that back and maybe fill this joint just a tiny bit. Other than that, that went fine. This bumper I put on, it was spread out a little bit. So I just took some quick setting Tamiya and I glued the center, and then I slowly went down each side and it went on just fine. This part, it went on great. I see I've got a couple little glue marks there I'll sand out. I'll go over this again before I paint it, probably with a 1200 grit or something like that, just to make sure it's all nice and smooth. And I got the little eye on the end there. I'll have to be careful I don't break that. So we're going to call that step 3 done. And we'll take a look here real quick at step 4. Okay. We start with the deck. And we've got a wall to put in here. This is the dash. I've got this stuff all, there's the deck right here. I haven't cleaned any of this up yet. But here's the wall that'll go in here. And the dash. I want to paint all this before I put it in there because it's got some gauges and things on there. This is another little part here that goes on the bow. And then there's a few, like the steering wheel. And there's some mounts for antennas and a few other things here that'll need to be cleaned up and then glued on. So that's what I'll do next. I'm not sure what kind of time I'm running into today. I might try and get this done and shoot one more video. And I've got the hatches here that I need to put on the back. That'll all have to be cleaned up. One thing I was going to mention, I know very little about boats, but I'm assuming that on almost every boat there are some kind of ropes. If anybody has any suggestions as to a material that would look good on a 1/35 scale boat of this size, something I could make a few coils or do something just to make it look a little bit more authentic, drop it in the comments. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, I'll get this stuff cleaned up, and before we go on to step 4, there's something I wanted to show you in the instructions real quick. They're saying to take the cockpit, this part here, and attach it to the underside of this. There are no locating pins for adjustment forward and back. This goes in here. Something like that. So that'll give you the rear locating, but side to side there's nothing. The parts don't have any kind of a location marking at all on them, and the width of this is the same as the width as this. So what I'm going to do, I cut some styrene strips, and I'm going to put them in here on both sides. That'll give me a better gluing surface and a positive location side to side, so that everything will be nice and strong and positively located. The other thing that I wanted to say is on the inside of both of these, this is really thick right here. On the inside of both of these there was major sink, lots and lots of sink. This side I was able to pretty much sand it all out. I can see just a very faint little line. This side was terrible. There was no way in the world I was going to sand all that out and have anything left to attach to. So last night before I went to sleep, I went ahead and put some perfect plastic putty in there and let it set up, overnight to cure. And I just sanded it off, and it looks really good now. We'll have to see what it looks like when I get a little primer on there. But I wanted to get rid of that because, when you're looking at the model this way, you're going to be able to see that surface really clearly. So I didn't want to have that, looking really bad. So I've got all the parts here for, this is the hatches in the back and the doors and everything for that. They're all cleaned up and ready to go. And these are the other parts for the dash and for the other parts on the top of the hull. So they're all cleaned up and ready to go. I'll go ahead and get them put on, and we'll come back and see how things look, and then proceed on to step 5, I imagine. Okay, here's step 4, pretty much all complete. The only thing I haven't done yet is the steering wheel and the throttles. I'm going to leave all that till I can get the dials painted. But this is where we're at now. I've got the hatches on and all of the cleats and everything done. I'm assuming these are lifting hooks. This is all just dry fitted. But I think it looks pretty good. I see I still have a little bit of a mold line to clean up on the side there. But I went ahead and put I just dry fitted the stand just to have something to put it on. So the next step, well, and this is all just dry fitted. The next step will be 5. Which will be the rear propulsion and steering mechanism, so forth. I found this B12 has lots and lots of sink here and here, and there is some inside, which is kind of hard to see. So I'll be doing some filling on that. I have all the other parts cleaned up and ready to go. Shouldn't take too long to put this together. But I'll do some filling and we'll get this part looking a little bit better. And then I'll be back and show you this part. Okay. We've got the parts all on for step 5, except for this one, which I filled and sanded. I just need to attach it, and that'll have the rear finished. One thing about this kit that I'm not too sure about, the back here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 small holes that go inside, and there's nothing in there, of course. I'm not going to go to a great effort. If I can get it where you guys can see it. I'm not going to go to a great effort to build something inside too much, but to make it look a little bit better, I thought I might either put a small bulkhead here inside or do something just to paint it black so that when you look at the back of the boat, you can't just see gray plastic inside. And also, I'm going to have a bit of a seam here that I want to do something with. So I'll glue this on, then I'll see what this seam looks like. I may end up doing some filling on that and getting the seam pretty much gone. I think it would look a lot better. And on this deck, when you put this on, this leaves a kind of a weird seam right here. So I may glue that together after I put the cockpit in and fill that. I haven't decided yet. But I'm going to probably call it quits for this video. I think we made some pretty good progress. It's a great little kit. It's simple to build. I haven't had any issues except for some sink marks. And oh, I decided while I was filling things, I went ahead and put some Mr. Surfacer in here. And I'll let that set up real good just to make sure that I don't have any marks. And also the holes for this were a little oversized. So after I glued it in, I could actually kind of see light in a couple of spots. So I just put a dab of Mr. Surfacer on the inside to kind of push through and fill the holes and to block any light. And it all looks just fine. But I'll get this last part glued on and I'll decide what I'm going to do with the last couple of seams. And that'll get us to the point where we can start putting some weapons together and figuring out our seating and getting the figures figured out. I want to make sure that they sit naturally. You know, the worst thing in the world is to, you know, make your figures up and have them to where they don't sit naturally and look like they belong there. So I really appreciate you guys watching. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing YouTube. I've made a lot of internet friends. I hope to make many, many more. You guys come back next time and we'll get some more of this done. Probably shouldn't take too long to get it finished. Thanks a lot. See you.